Well, hello there, everybody. I am so glad to be here. Thank you so much, Rhonda. That was the whole panel so far has been amazing. And I think it was either as Trinae said, or I think Andrea said, it's like a tapestry, right? It all sort of fits all together and it's painting this beautiful picture. And so I'm going to add my part to the picture. I'm LaShawn Fleming Bruce. I go by ShonSpeaks. I recently finished my brain health professional certification. Now, I didn't seek this certification because I was looking for new credentials or to add new letters to my letters behind my name. I actually stumbled upon this certification because I was in search of my sanity. See, this year has been just one of those years where life just threw me some curveballs. And I felt like I had never been here before. Relationships that I thought were solid and meaningful and even long lasting started falling apart. And some of them just abruptly ended. And on top of that, the unhappiness that both me and my husband were having in our marriage was exposed and could no longer be denied. And we had to have sort of that uncomfortable conversation with each other that we've been kind of putting off in the past to one day in the future. And that time came, that time was now. We had to have those uncomfortable conversations. And then on top of that, I'm getting older and I started breaking out in these sweats from nowhere. So I'm in, I'm in menopause. So it was just been a crazy roller coaster of a year. And although what I was going through seemed new to me, I knew it was not. You see, for the past few years, I've been doing a lot of blogging, I've been doing a lot of podcasting, and many would classify that as maybe self-help or personal development. And though these expressions, I was going through all of these things, and I wasn't really enjoying what life was expressing to me. I wanted to be a person that did not blame others for what was going on in my life. I wanted to have full responsibility of whatever was showing up in my life. And these are all of the things I talked about on my blogs, I talked about on my podcast. But I literally look back at that now and I realized I was literally training for this time that I'm in right now. And with this greater awareness about myself, I was able in this present moment to look at what I was going through and I could say, wait a minute, I have actually been here before. Maybe not in the same relationship, maybe not the same friendships broke down. Maybe I was not in the same uncomfortable situation. But what was here was that I noticed that as I reflected on each heartbreak, each broken relationship, each unwanted situation, it was me that was present each time. It was me wanting what no longer wanted me. It was me wanting who no longer wanted me. It was me not wanting who wanted me. It was me stuck in a cycle that always had me wishing for what life didn't bring or wanting for what life took away. Our brains are involved in every move we make. It's involved in every feeling we have and every decision we make. And our brains should be working for us. But yet, many of us find ourselves single when we want to be married, married when we want to be single, in an abusive relationship when we want to be in a loving relationship, or being used by friends when all we really want is true confidence. And despite these disappointments with life and with other people's decisions, we find ourselves sort of stuck, wanting what doesn't want us, wanting for that person to come back, wanting for that employer to hire us back, and wanting a past life that is no more. And every time we have a thought every time we have a thought, our brains reward us with a chemical release. And these chemicals are either feel-good chemicals, feel-bad chemicals, or feel indifferent chemicals. Now these thoughts that we have, these neurochemical thoughts, are neurotransmitters, as they're called. The most common ones, and I'm sure you've heard of them: serotonin, that's that related to mood and that calming neurotransmitter. Cortisol, that's stress, that's that when you have that stress. Dopamine, when you need that drive and motivation. Norepinephrine, that's when you need that energy and alert production. Oxytocin, trust, that feeling of love, joy. And endorphins, that's stress relievers. These are all chemicals that are released every time you have a thought. Now, thoughts come into our mind automatically. And let me tell you something, y'all. Thoughts lie. The chemicals released in our brains when we have thoughts can cause certain brain functions to be overreactive or underreactive. Just because you think a thought does not make the thought true. Let me save some of you just a few dollars on counseling, right? Because I've already paid for it. You can't make somebody come back that want to go. You cannot get a job or an employer to take you back after they have let you go. And despite whatever traumatic event that has occurred in your life in the past, it has happened already. And no amount of holding on to it is going to change that. One of the things that I learned about myself on my new brain health journey is that my brain produces low serotonin. This actually makes sense to me now because exercise has always been my go-to therapy. Because I noticed years ago that if I go too long without exercising, I become a monster. I become moody. I become a person that I don't even want to deal with. I become stuck on thoughts that I can't let go. Now, there's this structure in your brain called the limbic system. The limbic system is your emotional center. When outside data and experiences come into your world, it registers first within the limbic system. This is where you give emotional attachment to that data or to that experience. This is where you tag those experiences or that data as meaningful, safe, dangerous, happy, joyful, whatever tag you give to it. Now, this data then travels to your temporal, occipital, and your parietal lobes, where it is processed and compared to prior experiences that you may have had. And then it goes to your prefrontal cortex, which is considered to be your CEO of your brain and body. And that's where you make a decision of what to do or not to do. Now, although this process may seem long, this is all done instantaneously. Now, there's this part of the brain that's within the limbic system called the anterior cingulate gyrus. Now, this brain part has a function that's very unique. It has the ability it gives you the ability to shift attention. It gives you the ability to have cognitive flexibility. It gives you the ability to move from idea to idea. It gives you the ability to detect errors. It gives you the ability to cooperate, the ability to see options, and the ability to go with the flow of life. Research has shown that an overactive anterior cingulate gyrus generally means you have low serotonin being produced in the brain. So because you might have low serotonin being produced in your brain, you have to really be mindful of the 4 circles of brain health so that you can make sure you're bringing in or adding in serotonin where it may not be naturally produced. And those 4 main areas of brain health is biology, that's your diet and your exercise, your social, that's your relationships, your friendships, your business, etc. That's your psychological, that's your inner thoughts. Like Rhonda was saying, your negative thoughts that may be replaying in your brain, and you may not even be conscious of it. And your spiritual, it's your purpose, your vision for yourself. One way to train your brain to deal with what is, because the title of the topic that I'm talking about is what is training your brain to embrace reality. And one way to do that is to learn to flip it, right? It's really to learn to flip it. I think Glennis had started speaking about this. Flip the current thoughts that are causing the stress. Flip the current thoughts that are causing the sadness, the heartbreak, the feelings of unworthiness. But you have to flip it into accurate thinking about yourself, about others, and about life in general. Now, but this is the rub. This is the hard part. You can't flip or challenge thoughts you don't notice. I noticed for a long time that I was doing things, I was producing literally the same outcomes in my life, but I did not know how I ended up in the same situation with a different person on a different day in a different year. But it kept happening over and over and over again. And it's these thoughts that you're not noticing, but you are believing, that are dictating outcomes in your life that you have a continuous discontentment with. Now, hear me on this. If we were at church and if I was preaching, I would say, touch your neighbor. I'm about to tell you something shocking. But we ain't at church, and I'm not a preacher, and I'm not going to ask you to touch your neighbor, but you might want to touch yourself with this. Hear me. Whatever is going on in your life right now are needed moments, and it's exactly what you want. Now, I know you're saying, ShonSpeaks, I don't believe you. And that ain't true, because there's a lot of things going on in my life right now that I don't want. But I'm going to repeat it. Whatever is going on in your life at this moment are needed moments and is exactly what you want. The only reason why you disagree with me is the same reason why I used to disagree with myself when that first came to my mind. And it was because the story you believe about yourself, about others, or about life in general is different from your current reality. Yeah, I said that. That's the only reason, because you told yourself a story that don't match with current reality, and you mad about it. You sad about it, right? You're heartbroken about it. The day my husband moved out of our home into his own separate house was a needed moment for me and was a needed moment for him. Why? Because it was happening. I had to decide in that moment, who was I going to be? Was I going to be the angry wife? Was I going to be the scornful wife who said, oh, I can't believe this man left me? Was I going to be the wife who turned into a friend, who helped someone that she loves move into his space for his happiness, move into his space and give care to where my children will share time? And I chose to be the latter, because I was tired, y'all, of boxing with reality. I was tired. See, when we were married and living in the same house, I was always unhappy because he wasn't doing this, he wasn't doing that, he could improve on this, he could improve on that. So when he moved out, I had to be faced with this new reality. Why pretend in this new reality that I needed something, that I wanted something, or that I was angry about something, or that I was scorned, or that he did me wrong, when in actuality, it was what I needed. And what I needed more than anything was I needed to embrace what was going on. I needed to embrace what is. In that moment, I needed to have accurate thinking about what was happening in my life. Now, my initial thought, because I am, how we can be, I was like, I cannot believe this asshole is moving out on me and leaving me and the kids by ourselves. That was my initial thought. I thought he was wrong for it. I really did. And that, had I not gone through years of podcasting, reading, learning, teaching, exposing my own negative thoughts, I would have continued to feed that thought, which would have continued to feed the chemical, release that chemical that was going to make me moody, uncooperative, always saying no, not able to move past and go from see options about life. I would have just stayed stuck. But after I flipped that thought and got out of his business, I realized that he wanted to be happy too. And he was only doing what he felt was best for his happiness. You see, my normal unconscious behavior would have been to just replay it in my mind how wrong he was. And I would have classified him as selfish. I would have classified him as, you know what I would have classified him, right? You know what I would have called him. But I couldn't do it this time. I could not bring myself to fight with reality. I wanted to fully embrace what was happening in my life because I no longer wanted to be a victim to other people's decisions. And I no longer wanted to be a victim to my own decisions. I no longer wanted to take my thoughts and turn them into Sean's drama. Because I realized that over the years in the area of my relationships, I always played the victim. I always played the girl who got her heart broken. I always played the girl who wanted somebody back. I always played the girl who didn't get what she wanted necessarily out of life. But when I started to realize that there's basically three businesses in the world, three main businesses. It's my business, it's your business, and it's life business. Now, my business is the things that I can control. Your business is the things that you can control. And life business is that part of this ecosystem that happens without consulting me. Now, some of you might want to call that God's business, life's business, God's business, whatever registers with you. Every time I focus on thoughts without challenging them or expanding the thought or flipping it, like I like to call it, I am putting my nose in someone else's business. And I am adding another layer of separation from my state of gratitude. You see, I am gratitude in the flesh, unless I believe a story that separates me from myself. Every time you fight reality with your story of what you thought it should have been, what you thought you wanted it to be, or what you thought that person should have done or should not have done, you are guaranteeing, how they say guarantee? I guarantee you are going to lose every time. You're going to be in grief every time. You're going to be in frustration every time, and you are going to be in heartbreak every time. When you are willing to flip a thought, right, you begin to see one thought at a time. And it takes time, y'all. And I don't actually think you ever get done doing this until you're done. When you begin to see one thought at a time, that it was the thought that you turned into a story that created the character that you were unconsciously playing, that is causing all of your pain, you will run to start flipping your thoughts, right? Because when you learn to flip the thoughts, you learn to flip fear into no fear. You learn to flip want into no want. You learn to flip heartbreak into an openness to love, disappointment into opportunity, hate into love. And this one right here, it's hard for some people to get it, but after you flip for a while, you understand. You begin to understand and you begin to flip the need to forgive yourself and to forgive others into realizing that there is nothing to fear, to forgive. You see, what is. What is present in your life is what is present. And how do I know that what you want or who you want, you don't need? Because you don't have it. Because if you needed it, it would be in your life at this moment. See, when you can get to the point where you can take your present reality and you can say all of these moments that are occurring right now are needed moments, you can live with a gratitude about your existence. Because if you were to die in the next moment, wanting in this moment what you did not have, then the only thing that would be true for that want would be that it's a part of your story. But it wouldn't be true for your life, right? Because if you die in the next moment and you don't have what it is that you want, you didn't need it. Your story may have needed it, but you didn't need it. We have to understand that we are more than the stories that we tell ourselves. Don't worry too much about what has left your life. Uh-oh, I think I'm frozen. Am I still here? Am I frozen? Okay, I think I froze for a second. Am I here? Am I back? Okay, you can hear me. Don't worry too much about, don't worry too much. I muted myself. Don't worry too much about what has left your life. Don't worry too much about the things that you would like to happen in your life. The one thing I'm learning about life is that life has this way of shaking up your world and bringing in exactly what you want and taking out what needs to go. And life does it on life's schedule. What you have to do is get out of life's business and worry about and deal with what you can deal in your business. And so what I wanted to do, I just want to leave you with just this thought. I don't want you to keep fighting life, right? Wanting life to be different. I want you to embrace your life right now, no matter what is going on, as being needed moments and aligning with exactly what it is you want. Because if you start to do that, you start to flip those thoughts, then in this moment, you realize that you are training in this moment for this moment and seeding in this moment for the harvest of the moments thereafter. Now, one of the things that I'm offering, if you are watching this or if you catch on replay on Facebook, is that I am offering a 30-minute Flip It session with ShonSpeaks. And I'm doing it for $50 for a limited time period. So if you are interested in learning how to flip your thoughts, right? Because when you start to do it unconsciously, right, then that's the key. Just like you were unconsciously having these negative thoughts that was driving your life, you're going to learn how to unconsciously have these, you're going to have flip these negative thoughts into positive thoughts or neutral thoughts so that you can produce the life you want. Because I will say this as closing. When you can begin to really pay attention to your thoughts, your inner thoughts, right? Because you're now aware of your brain function. Your inner thoughts, because of optimal brain function, is going to help you make better decisions. And when you start to make better decisions, your outer life will reflect better decision making. And you can begin to live the life of your dreams right now. This is ShonSpeaks. Ashe.